Ladies and gentlemen, a glorious new season is upon us once again, and, if you're like me, you decided to play during preseason and dropped all the way from Mid-Masters to Diamond 4. We are just getting started with the new season, and like every season, Riot makes big changes to League of Legends, and then everyone loses their mind, including myself, because change is scary. But this year, the biggest changes are in fact with the jungle. And as a jungle main, it's definitely been a nice change of pace from the regular jungle shenanigans. Welcome to my Season 13 Poppy Jungle Guide. I am Dactomaniac, Master Poppy One Trick, peaking about 198 LP last season with over 900 Poppy games played. Good lord, that's a lot. I didn't even start grinding until like mid-season. Today we will be talking about the all-new jungle changes, item and build changes, and everything else Poppy Jungle related that will get you that delicious high-protein LP this season. But if you find this guide helpful, make sure you subscribe and such because I'm all about whoring myself out on the internet. Speaking of which, I also stream over on Twitch TV/Dactomaniac, where about 4 times a week you will see the spiciest Poppy gameplay your eyeballs can possibly absorb. So let's begin with all the jungle changes, because as a jungler, these are the biggest changes for us this season. One important change is the introduction to the new jungle companions, or Pokemon as everyone calls them, because come on, they're Pokemon. We got your Bluebell, your Gringus, and your Redbow. And these little guys will follow you around the game and help you out in the jungle, dealing damage to camps and providing buffs after a while. To get them, you will now purchase Egg. These are now the jungle items you start with. That's right, no more Blue Smite, no more Red Smite, and no more Purple Smite. Now all you have is Egg. You buy the egg, it starts with 40 charges, you remove 1 charge per camp clear, and bonus charges stack up over time while you're out ganking and get consumed in the next camp clear. Oh yeah, Smite now deals 600 base true damage instead of 450. After 20 stacks are cleared, it's upgraded to 900 damage, and you can now Smite champions for a small amount of true damage and slow them. Once all the stacks are consumed, Smite deals 1200 true damage to monsters, and you unlock your Pokemon special ability. Bluebell grants you move speed after clearing a camp and walking through brush, which lingers for a few seconds after leaving. Gringus gives you a small shield after clearing a camp, that gives you a small amount of tenacity and slow resistance. And Redbow grants a small amount of true damage when you damage a champion next. The next biggest change is that Chemtech Drake is back, but now it grants tenacity and shield and heal power per stack, with the soul granting your team bonus damage and tankiness while at low health. And its Rift effect, instead of adding that horrible stealth-granting fog, now puts the Rift plants on steroids, boosting their effects. As for some smaller changes, for you jungle-curious folks, they added recommended clearing paths and a leash range indicator so you know exactly how far you can pull camps before they reset. Speaking of which, if you do reset a camp, it's much easier to pick it back up, as it doesn't walk back as fast and it doesn't heal back as much health. More small changes is that you now deal less damage to the enemy jungle, making invading a little harder, and partly clearing a camp no longer exists. Camps will now fully reset if you leave a small chicken or wolf while invading. Big Krug now breaks into 4 smaller Krugs, making it easier to clear. And lastly, Scuttle has no shield anymore. Okay, that's it, we're done, onto the pooper. Let's start out with builds. There are some spicy item changes this preseason, and there are definitely some new items Poppy likes to build, but for runes, nothing has changed. Our 2 main rune builds will be the more damage-oriented page with Dark Harvest, Cheap Shot, Eyeball Collection, and Relentless Hunter, with Celerity and Water Walking as secondaries, or the utility/tank-oriented page with Phase Rush, Nimbus Cloak, Celerity, and Water Walking. Secondaries with those are Hex Flash and Cosmic Insight, with double adaptive and armor for both sets. Both are completely viable and are the best choices for Poppy Jungle. For items, like I mentioned, there are some new mythics that have been added this preseason with some good options, but really Poppy's core build is still the same. For the jungle pets, the best choice right now is the green pet for the shield and tenacity and slow resistance and all that. Green's just like the best for everything all the time. Blue's a good alternative, but the speed boost doesn't really help, it just kind of helps you with clearing. And red I only take when I'm going my patented lethality build. For Mythics, Divine is still one of the best options for Poppy. It gives you the most damage and sustainability for peak Poppy performance. Although Jock Show is actually becoming my go-to item this season. I've won so many games with it and it's performing much better than Divine, at least for me. Frozen Gauntlet and Heartsteel are, options, but they aren't anywhere as good as Divine or Jock Show. Jock Show I would definitely build 90% of the time if I were going tanky, and Gauntlet I would build if you're against an all-AD team. Next we go Boots, Tabbies or Merc Treads, or even Mobies if you're super ahead and want to gank non-stop. Deadman's will be your next go-to item 100% of the time. It's too good for Poppy, giving you damage, move speed, and you can proc it with your shield toss. Okay, this is where it gets hard though. Poppy is one of those weird champs that you can build pretty much anything on and it works. You can go tank, you can go bruiser, you can go assassin, support, mage, lawyer, acrobat, pharmacist, janitor, whatever. Just get your mythic and your deadmans and that's it. You're good, you're done, you've mastered Poppy. And of course there is the assassin build. I've perfected 2 variations of this build and both are insane. And I know what you're saying, Assassin Poppy is troll, it would never work, but that's where you're wrong. I've carried Masters games with Assassin Poppy, so it's totally viable in any elo.
Bro, this Poppy is fucking crazy. Woohoo!
Next, let's go over matchups. Who's the best to pick Poppy into? Who are the champions I have nightmares about on a daily basis? Well, for me, it doesn't matter. I'm a one-trick. I play Poppy all the time. But let's take a look. I've created a champion tier list for the most likely matchups Poppy could face. Now, this is based on my experience as a high elo jungle in mid to high masters. The list is pretty explanatory. Easy LP tier is obviously the easiest matchups. The skill matchup tier are the harder champions to face, and if they get ahead, they will destroy you and your team. Kinda stinky champs are generally harder and really annoying to play against. You really need to gap these matchups. And the suffering tier. These are the champions that will completely ruin Poppy. You want to avoid interacting with these champions and rely on counter ganks and your team to win the game. Of course, this is all depending on the situation. I've beaten Trundles before, and Kindreds have right-clicked me to death with their insane skill every once in a while. But based on the champion itself, those are the matchups. And finally, on to jungling. How does one actually jungle? Well, jungling isn't just a relaxing PvE mode, it's a lot like playing chess. But you're playing with 4 different chessboards, all at the same time. And you're babysitting your best friend's 4 children. And all those children are constantly trying to climb into ovens, eat Legos, and stick metal forks into wall sockets. And if any of them succeed in any of those cases, or if you lose any of those 4 chess games, it's all your fault and the game's over. Jungling's pretty complex, so I'm only going to go over the basics to keep this short, but I've made an entire guide on Poppy jungling mechanics that I'll link up here at the top. The most important thing to realize is that Poppy is an early to mid game champ. She falls off late game, so you want to gank as much as possible to get your team ahead. Poppy normally doesn't full clear, so my jungle paths will usually look something like this. Ganking as early and often as possible. Ganking basics, you want to run in, try your best to herd the enemy next to a wall like unsuspecting cattle, stun them against the wall, and proceed to murder them with your allies. And if the enemy thinks they're smart and doesn't go near a wall, you can use your E to push them further into lane towards your allies, and farther away from the safety of their tower. But then again, it's not always safe. Poppy is a fantastic diver. Your tankiness and lockdown are great for making any highly mobile champion fear your very existence. After laning phase ends, it's time for your team fights. Your goal is to either lock down the enemy carry and one-shot them, or protect your own carry from danger with your massive throbbing Poppy skills. It depends on how fed you or your team are. Oh yeah, that reminds me, try not to get too many kills. Poppy is a good champion, but 90% of the time, you aren't gonna carry. A super fed tank Poppy means nothing in the late game when you'll most likely lose if your team can't do anything. And that about wraps things up. I've gone over the basics of Poppy jungle to get you started on your journey to becoming every Yasuo and Riven's worst nightmare. But of course, there are a lot more things to go over, but there's absolutely no way I can cover them all in a video. The rest comes from time, patience, and heading over to my stream and asking me all sorts of Poppy-related questions, like, what's the most efficient Poppy skill combo? What's the best way to use your ult? How many pictures of lewd anime girls do you have on your phone? The answer to all of these is, a lot. There's a lot of them. You can go assassin, support, mage, lawyer, acrobat, pharmacist, lawyer. I already said fucking lawyer. Son of a bitch, I fucked that up. I need one more funny word.